Hello and welcome back to the Stacey West YouTube channel, and welcome back to another preview. It is back with myself this week, and I am joined by Tom from Under the Abbey. Is it Under the Abbey podcast? Is that right?
Under the Abbey stand. Nearly
Under
there.
the Abbey stand. There we go. Close enough. Close enough. How are we doing today, Tom?
Yeah, all good. Thanks yourself.
Yeah, really well, thanks. Not too bad after a good draw for us yesterday. Obviously, not quite as solid for you yesterday, but I'm sure we'll get there. I guess that's probably sort of a good place to start. I look at the kind of form book, if you like, and that's the very first thing I do when I'm looking towards one of these previews. And I think it's fair to say that you've had a little bit of an inconsistent start to the season. The last sort of coming up to almost 20 games, 18 matches. So, explain to me what's the season been like so far?
It's mirrored last season almost identically, which is worrying in a way because we spent a significant part of that season sort of around the bottom. But we started really well. Like we came out of traps flying, and a couple of good wins, and found ourselves top sort of going late August into September. Obviously, very briefly. Since then, it has kind of fallen off somewhat. I think we've won 1 in our last 12. That was a 1-0 win against Carlisle, who obviously, like ourselves, are kind of finding themselves hurtling towards the bottom 4 with pace. And I think if I'm really honest, if you ask most Cambridge fans how they're feeling at the moment, it's pretty low. Our last 2 results have been a bit of a hammer blow. Particularly going away to Peterborough, obviously our main rivals, and getting absolutely beaten very well, shall we say? Away there, and Northampton is not on the same level as Posh to us, but it's still a localish fixture. We went there and we just weren't really good enough for about 70 minutes, and it's kind of fallen off somewhat. I think we've shown sort of signs of promise. Like, we got a really good point against Portsmouth, and I went to Wickham and got a good point. Like we've shown that if we get it right, and we can stay in games, we are a tough team to beat. But the difficulty that I think we've had has been that we tend to concede goals in batches, certainly recently. So if one goes in, 2 or 3 go in, which has been the case in the last couple of games, and our record of getting back into games having gone behind is nothing short of atrocious. So it's very much, if we can keep opposition nil, we're looking good. But if not, then maybe we're in trouble. So look, we're obviously it's not crisis territory yet. Like, we're 16th. Our main aim is to stay in the division. I guess in theory we're on course to do that. So, nobody's kind of waving the white flags just yet. But there are some concerning signs, to say the least.
Well, you sort of mentioned it there. One thing I kind of noticed was, you are one of the lowest teams in the league in terms of goal scoring. Joint on 14 goals scored this season, with the likes of Carlisle and Port Vale, only really beating Cheltenham, Exeter and Shrewsbury, all teams that are quite clearly struggling, especially in the attacking front. Is that kind of lack of goal scoring, obviously a major issue for you guys? Is it the fact that you're not really able to create as much, or is it just the fact that you're not really being able to put what are good chances away?
It's chance creation. It has to be. There are players in that team, in that squad, who have the quality to score goals. Fajiri Okanabire is a very capable striker at this level, a really good sort of goal poacher. He's actually had a decent-ish return, but the difficulty is that when you look at the sort of underlying data, XG, all this sort of stuff, it doesn't paint a very pretty picture. We're typically, I think, sort of around 0.6, 0.7, and across the course of a season, it's not really good enough. Like, it was a little bit better against Northampton yesterday, but when you're 2-0 down and it's half an hour of just kind of trying to get back into the game, naturally game state dictates that you're gonna kind of rack up a couple more chances. But it's chance creation. Like, we've built for the most part, other than the last couple of games, from a really solid base at the back, and that's built around the 2 centre backs. But it's been so concentrated on that it's detracted really from our ability to create chances, and obviously that's been the problem. You summed it up well there. When you talk about the teams that we're in and around in terms of goal scoring and sort of above, these are the teams at the start of the season you expect to make up the bottom 4 or 6 places. And I think on the basis of what we've seen of late, sort of since August, that's probably where we fit in the division, to be really frank.
That's fair enough. And I mean, like you say, if your aim is to be 20th or above, then it's fine as long as you're still being able to compete to a higher level against somebody like a Cheltenham, a Shrewsbury, a Carlisle, these sorts of teams. I don't get wrong, Shrewsbury are up in 12th, so they're a little bit of an anomaly in that. But I definitely see them struggling at certain parts of this season. So look, your home form is actually considerably better than what your away form is, though. So is that something that us travelling to you guys on Tuesday night, we're going to really need to be worried about? Is there a difference in the performances at home, much compared to the performances away from home? Or is it more just the fact that results have seemed to have gone your way at home, but there's not necessarily been this underlying home advantage in terms of performances?
I think in terms of the setup and the approach, it's been very similar. There isn't a noticeable shift in how we play home or away. So, I guess in theory, it's just a bit of a quirk of how the results have landed. That we've kind of won more of our home games than not. More than our away games. And I guess that's kind of how it is at every division. Teams want to build their form from their home results, and we've been able to do that to a point. I think the pitch at the Abbey is very tight, and because of the way we play and sort of set up, it's obviously suited towards that, which is fundamentally trying to keep the ball out of our net rather than being too focused on what's going on at the other end of the pitch. So. That's where we've built a solid-ish foundation. I think we've done much better at home than away from home in sort of turning zeros into ones. Games where it's like, well, look, if we can't win it, don't lose it, and we've done that quite well at home. But away from home, it's been a bit more tricky at times. It probably just reflects where we are in the division and sort of what our expectations are compared to other teams. I think for most teams when we go away from home, it's very much the kind of teams like Cambridge thing, right? We should be beating teams like Cambridge at home, and that's fair enough. So the onus is always on the opposition to come onto us and not the other way around. And if there's that much pressure on you at all times, then often it tells, and sometimes it's told quite dramatically. And others we've been fortunate enough to keep the ball out.
That's fair enough. And like you say, I guess it's, even though there isn't necessarily some kind of fundamental difference, home or away, things like that, but you will just sometimes find yourself more than willing to take the point. I guess, especially against some of the teams in this league. I mean, we find it ourselves at Lincoln that sometimes that's just the way you have to go. There's no sort of denying it, that at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to win every game, and you'd much prefer to take the 1 point than the 0. And you can. So you sort of alluded to a couple of the things that I sort of just want to ask. Sort of now, setup in terms of how you guys set up. I've got it down as a 4-back. But then after the 4 at the back, it's kind of a little bit questionable as to what kind of setup that you guys actually play. So just kind of fill me in on what sort of formation, what kind of shape we're expecting to see from you, and then how that how that actually shows itself into a play style on the pitch.
Yeah, it's been pretty attritional. I'll be quite honest. It's been well, of late it's been a sort of a 4-1-4-1, and the sort of the 2 in the middle of the park kind of rotate a little bit, and then normally if he's fit, it's Jordan Cousins kind of sitting kind of in front of the back 4. What's going to be interesting, in the game with you guys, is that Paul Digby got sent off at Northampton, and he's quite a big part in how we play like that. So it might be the case actually, because he's obviously not available for selection, someone else has to come in his place. Who, to be honest, the options that we've got that would replace him are naturally probably better ball players. So I think there is a chance that we might be forced to play in a slightly more expansive way. I'm not sure how that'll go, if it will suit us, if it will suit you guys, but I would expect that we'd have more ball players in the team for the game on Tuesday. I'm not sure how that will look. I'm not sure how that manifests itself. I would guess probably we'll go with a 4-2-3-1, try and sit the kind of double pivot quite deep, and obviously have the back four as we have done kind of all season. The difficulty that we've had really is kind of getting it out wide and creating chances. But I think what we do quite well is that the ability of teams to play through us through the middle is it's quite a tough ask, or it has been for the most part. And if you're going to hurt us, you're going to hurt us out wide, basically. But it kind of depends on selection, really, because I think the Digby sending off has kind of changed our outlook, and it's changed a little bit in terms of how we can set up and obviously how we will set up as well.
Well, that's really interesting because, don't get me wrong, the formation we kind of play is a 5-2-3, 3-4-2-1, however you kind of want to sort of call it. And although our two midfielders together is probably one of the best midfield partnerships in the league, and I really don't think I'm being biased there at all, but with Ethan Errahun and Ethan Hamilton, I just think them two together are absolutely outstanding. But it's a two-man midfield. So there is a very good chance that we're not going to be able to, like say, play through the middle of you. But our wingers, our wing backs, that are often utilised quite a lot. Lars Sorensen, one of the best right wing backs in the league, as far as I'm concerned, because he's just got this absolute engine on him, and he's got some really good end product as well. So if, like you're saying, we're going to be able to punish you out wide, it's going to be really interesting to see whether or not we can utilise the likes of Lass on one side and a Danny Manjoria in front of him and a Jack Burrows on the other side and such. So it seems like that kind of aspect of it is really going to go well for us, especially if it does very much go how you're sort of saying. So you've kind of mentioned a few different players there, obviously, but who would you say have been your standout performers so far this season? Who do we really need to worry about on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, I'll caveat all this by saying that my answer is kind of reflective of everything leading up to the last two games, because there are no standout performers from our last two matches. I think to be really honest in it, so sometimes it's a bit of a reflection of how you're playing and how the season's going, but it's the two centre backs. It's Michael Morrison and Ryan Bennett. They've been the ones that have been paramount to everything we've done. All the success we've had is from keeping a very decent number of clean sheets, particularly relative to our position in the league. So they're absolutely fundamental to that. And then obviously it breaks down the further up you go at the pitch. Really, it's kind of Fajiri Okanabire is what I mentioned earlier on. Like he's done quite well in front of goals. I think he's scored 6-7 goals already this season, which is pretty decent. The difficulty with him is that we have to really kind of manage his minutes because he spent a lot of time out injured in the last 2 or 3 years, and obviously we're, as it is, quite heavily reliant on him for goals. So we need to make sure that he's at least available for some part of the games on a weekly basis. So to be honest, I think it's those two. It's difficult to name anyone else. Really, I think Liam Bennett, our right back, is one that's caught eyes, particularly throughout last season when he was on loan at Walsall, and then he sort of came back and did well. He found it a little bit more tricky this season. He's maybe not had the protection from whoever it is that sits in front of him as much as needed. So that that obviously naturally puts a little bit more pressure onto him. But I think it's the two centre backs really, Michael Morrison and Ryan Bennett. They can be like a brick wall at times. We need that to sort of go back to how it was, because we're kind of due one of those performances, hopefully. But yeah, let's see.
No, I think that's totally fair enough. And let's be honest, when you are towards sort of the lower echelons of the table, and you've already said there have been certain points where you do find yourself looking over your shoulder, you're going to have two really solid centre halves to be able to build a solid base, which you've already mentioned. So on that aspect of it, it's a real positive for you that you've got two players that have seemingly taken on that challenge and really grasped it with two hands. So to kind of wrap it all up then, Tom, I guess the question I have to ask, and some people like answering this, some people don't. Score prediction. How do you see Tuesday night going?
I normally quite like making a prediction, but I think having seen what I've seen in the last fortnight, it's something that fills me with dread, to be honest. I think it's a really big game for us, to be honest. Like, you can never call a game in November a must win. Obviously, there's still a lot of the season to go, but I just think for what it represents, we need a reaction. We need to bounce back, which traditionally under Mark Bonner we have done quite well, and obviously we need to show something. So I'd like to think we can take something from the game. I'm not confident enough to say that we'll win yet, because I'm not seeing anything that's going to suggest that that's going to that's forthcoming. So I think we'll take something. I can see us get on the score sheets. I'll go 1-1.
Okay. Look, do you know what? I would probably take a 1-1 draw away from home against Cambridge, who we've not won against you guys, I don't think, since that 5-1, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think so.
I'm just using that as an excuse to bring that up rather than,
to be honest, but thanks.
rather than the games last year, because neither of the games against you last year were worthy of talking about from our point of view. But yeah, I'm gonna go for a 2-0 away victory. I like going for 2-0s typically, but I just feel like some of the things you've mentioned, I just think that we're going to be able to utilize the, like I said, the wide players, really kind of target your weaknesses in the squad. If you're going to try and maybe use a bit more of the ball and maybe try to come at us and leave more space, I think we're currently trying to be more attacking and sort of consistent in our attacking press and such at the minute under our new manager. So for me, I think we're going to be able to really kind of utilize that kind of changes style for us. So a 2-0 away victory. But hopefully that'll be the case anyway, but we shall have to wait and see. Thank you so much, Tom, from jumping on with me. Everybody make sure to go check out Under the Abbey Stand podcast. One of the best in League One, absolutely. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining me, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you too, mate. Thanks for having me.
Up the Imps.